Drop those drinks. It's time for Sports Around the Bar.
Now you should be able to hear us.
Hey,
All right.
there we are.
Our tech support here, terrible. Who does all that shit?
I do.
That's actually me.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take the blame for this one, Drew. I messed it up. Hey, welcome into Sports Around the Bar is what I was trying to say while the volume wasn't working. I am Jake, your bartender, and as always, I am joined on center stool by my co-host, Drew. And Drew, hopefully this rest of the show goes a little bit smoother than that. I had a note to myself, fix the mic, didn't fix the mic. So, nice to see we're still Bush League over here. Welcome into the show, guys. Today we are going to be talking about John Wall, the Seahawks. Seahawks Reed, defensive tackle, was suspended today. We're going to talk about fair or foul when you compare it to Tyreek Hill and everything. Also, Andrew has another update on his favorite player, Tyreek Hill, and why he didn't deserve a suspension.
Favorite player.
You like him. And we're also going to talk New York Giants, as well as Odell Beckham and what he thinks about him, because he came out and made a big statement in GQ. If you didn't hear about that, we're going to talk about it too. Anything you're looking forward to talking about, Drew? I mean, it's almost predominantly football today. We're only a couple weeks away.
We're only a couple weeks away. Football. That's what I want to talk about. Wes, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us. Ian, always good to see you. Nate, yay! You can hear us.
Yes.
And Sharif, glad you're always with us, man. Full of information you are.
Ken, we're always glad to drink with you too, man. Good to see you in the show. Let's start, though. Why don't we do basketball first? And then we'll go full football on from there.
Oh, we're doing basketball?
We are doing basketball here. We're going to
do
talk about John Wall being out for all of 2019. Again, a setback to another injury. It seems to be the story these days with John Wall. He has a setback on his Achilles. We have a guest. He has a setback on his Achilles, and he's now going to miss the entire 2019-2020 season. And when you look at it, Drew, I know people are saying, oh, they just offered Bradley Beal this new 3-year, $111 million contract extension. If I'm Bradley Beal, there is no way I'm signing that thing, right? Are you signing it with where the Washington Wizards are right now?
The Wall setback is huge. I guess it depends on how much he believes in this organization.
How much should he believe in the organization? The organization that was going to land Kevin Durant all the way back when.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, he goes to Golden State. And basically haven't really landed any major players since then. I mean,
right.
If anything, they've rotted on the vine. Gone are the days of Martin Gortat and, what was it, Nene they had.
Right.
Where you could just put those big guys out there with Wall and make an impact with them. They really haven't done anything to make this team better, at least in the free agent side of things, since then.
Right, and there was rumors to out there saying that they're willing to trade Wall and Beal. So how much belief do they have in Beal? Maybe I guess at this point in time, it's probably not a good idea to sign this.
Well, I think if you're Washington, lock him up because he's about your last good, healthy player at this point, or at the very least, he is your last star, if you want to call him a star, that has any kind of health right there. I think you have to sign it if you're Washington. You have to float this out there. I don't care what the numbers are. You just get it done. With John Wall coming up on a contract here in a couple of years, I think it's 2 years he has left. He has this year that's injured and the next year. So, I mean, realistically, are you going to win in the East in 1 year worth of prep?
No, probably not.
And are you going to re-sign John Wall, who's now starting to have those injuries come in and starting to lose a step anyway when he's out there?
Not any kind of money he wants to be signed for.
Exactly. So I think if you're Washington, make this deal or trade him. That's where I'm at. Bradley Beal still has a couple years left on his contract. Trade him to somebody else while you have the chance and just hit the plunger. Go rebuild on all this. I know everyone says try to trade John Wall too. I understand that. If you can find a taker, but I don't see a taker for a guy like this. Not at this point in his career. Which is unfortunate because I used to love John Wall. I liked watching him play. He was one of the greatest drive-in experts. Him and Russell Westbrook, when they were both younger, fun to watch.
Absolutely. Brian, glad you could join us, man. Ian, thank you so much. Give us the name of that podcast, man, so we can check it out. But we appreciate you putting our name out there. Guys, remember, likes, shares, comments help us astoundingly against Facebook algorithms and all that stuff. It means the world to us when you guys do that. I just want to remind you when you like and all that stuff, add people's names into it, man. Bring people into the conversation. We do this show to talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sharif also wanted to point out, because it wasn't in our headline, that Tim Duncan has now signed with the Spurs to be an assistant coach. Good move for the Spurs.
Yeah,
good move
I was hoping he's coming back to play at 55.
Good move for the Spurs. I always like to see this, even as a coach. I mean, is there a better guy to learn from than Tim Duncan? I don't know. At the player level,
I mean, he was a model, NBA star. It's exactly what you want. He came out, played. It was a team player, and statistically was a monster.
Great rapport with Popovich. These guys are already on the same page. Love that move. As for Washington, like I said, I'm ready to hit the plunger on this team. I'm ready for them to blow it up. You would think that Washington would be, and this is D.C. again, not Washington State, would be a sexier landing spot for some of these East Coast guys that want to go play in the Eastern Conference. They haven't really seemed to get it done. I don't know whether it's organizational. I don't know if people don't want to live in D.C. or there's other places like Toronto that have been luring players instead. Right. They just have not been able to land another superstar. And in the NBA, that's almost enough to seal the coffin right there. I mean,
yeah, it's a struggle when you can't bring superstars through free agency. I mean, that's what the NBA is built around now. You saw it dramatically this year during free agency. And Brian, we are talking about the New York Giants. That's our main topic.
Absolutely, yes. Right now we're starting with John Wall re-injuring himself and missing all of 2019-2020 season already. So obviously that sucks if you're a Washington fan, but at this point, just blow it up and trade Beal. I really don't think you keep him around, you'll probably wind up being like the 10th or 11th team in the East and just ruin your draft pick. I think at this point, you're probably better off trading somebody like Beal than you are hanging on to him. Ty, good to see you too, man.
Ian, I'm assuming that's the podcast that you're talking about, the Bucks report on the Tampa Bay Bucks. We'll check it out. You
awesome.
will.
I can't wait to see where they're at. They might be Tampa Bay homers. I think their record is going to wind up being a little bit, or their predictions could be a little bit different than ours, going 1-15.
Yeah,
the worst team so far.
Just a smidge.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
That's okay, though. Now, Sharif is saying he could possibly see Bradley Beal going off to the Heat. I would make that move. I would love to see that move before Chris Paul.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against Chris Paul, but you're going to get more out of Bradley Beal. You're getting a great shooter. You're also getting a guy who is 26 instead of 33, 34 for Chris Paul, and is not going to cost you an absorbent amount of money for the last 3 years of that contract that Paul is. That would be the move for me before you go and trade for an aging star. Give up those same number of picks and go get Bradley Beal instead.
Yeah, so, Sharif, I got a question for you. Does that make the Heat a legitimate threat in the East? I mean, where does that make them if Beal does go there? And are they facing like the Sixers or the Bucks? Where does he face with that? I mean, what do you think? Because does that one player with Jimmy Butler make the Heat that much better? I mean, they'll make the playoffs, but I thought they were going to make the playoffs with Jimmy Butler alone.
I think so too. But I want to say with Butler and Beal out there, if you can put them both in the court, I think you could potentially make a second or third round appearance in the East. I get it. There are better teams. There's 76ers. There's Milwaukee out there that are better. Some people will say Toronto as well. But I think when you look at it, there are going to be only a couple teams that are not in the running for it. You could catch the Bucks. Maybe something happens to Giannis. Maybe something happens to Chris Middleton, and they only have one of those guys going in there. Maybe something happens to Joel Embiid again, and Ben Simmons can't shoot. If I'm the Heat, I'm at very least willing to gamble. I mean, it's been a while since they've been relevant. Now is the time that it's okay to go out and roll the dice and try to get better. Because if you do bring in Beal and you do bring in Butler, and you've already brought in Butler, I think you can do well enough with them that you can convince somebody next year. Be our third guy, especially a big. If you can get a big with those two guys, be our third guy, and all of a sudden you have a chance to win and go to the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe even the championship.
Sharif said the Heat will be a 5 or 6 seed with that move. And Will, thank you so much for correcting us, man. When we go into these topics, man, we try to fill our brains up with so much information as we can, and mistakes happen. But we appreciate.
I think we said Ronald Jones was a first-round pick, but he was actually a second-round pick. If you're spending a second-round pick on a running back and he flames out, that's still a pretty big swing and a miss.
Either way,
he hasn't flamed out yet. It's only been 1 year.
We appreciate the correction. I mean, we make mistakes, man. We're human.
We do, absolutely. Now, Ian's also saying Wall will be a trade and release. Do you see that as a likely potential? It could be, but I don't think someone's going to go eat that cap for him to go and release him. I think this is, if you're Washington, why are you going to go give up assets to get him off your books?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to win anyway. You need to keep every asset you've got, especially if you do trade Beal and Wall is out. You're going to have a top 5 pick, prospectively. I know it's a lottery, so nothing's guaranteed, but You're going to have a top 3, 4, 5 pick more than likely.
Bobby, I'm glad you could join us, man. Nestor, man, we will try our best when we're going to do the Cowboys that we tag you in it so you are fully aware when we get into the Cowboys.
2 weeks from Wednesday. I looked at it today because someone else asked me about the Cowboys. I believe as long as we stay on schedule, 2 weeks from Wednesday, we will be talking about the Dallas Cowboys. We're also going to be talking about them later today because we're talking about one of their division rivals in the New York Giants. We're going to be talking about Do the Giants stack up against the Cowboys? Where do these two teams finish? We are going to talk about them a little bit, so if you want to stick around.
Well, if you remember, Nestor's the one that got us in that long conversation about the Cowboys last time.
I think it was Amari Cooper we started with, and it just
kept
rabbit
going.
holed from there. But that's okay. Sharif says the Heat will be a 5 or a 6 seed, with or without Beal. I mean, without Beal, I see him probably somewhere around.
That's what he was saying with Beal.
With Beal, I think they're there right now. I mean, who's going to beat him in the East? I think Boston will be formidable. I think the 76ers will be good. The Pacers, maybe, if they can stay healthy and we get the same Oladipo from before. The Bucks, obviously. Maybe Toronto. I'm not even willing to bet Toronto. They just lost their best player by far.
I still have the beer bet. Toronto's not going to make the playoffs in the East.
I know. I see Toronto is right in that area. I think they're already 5 to 6. You had someone like Beal. I still think they're 5 to 6, but I think it's a much more competitive 5 or 6. I mean, maybe they go up to 4. With Boston 76ers and the Bucks still out in front of them in Milwaukee.
Yeah, but you got like.
Am I forgetting anybody?
I don't know, man. You got the Pacers, who are just seem to be an elite team as teamwork goes, not statistically or top wins. You got the Pistons with another year of Blake Griffin being there. I mean, possibly.
They could go to 4.
I think I'm with Sharif. I think it's 5 or 6. I think that's where you sit him. I honestly do.
All right, we'll move on. And just a couple more. Sharif says Giannis's little brother is now a Laker. I know. Is that desperation? Are they just trying to stick it to the Bucks by signing him, or do you think they actually have a developmental project? Because you would think the Bucks would find space to sign him. I know. Was he the brother who was on the roster? I think he was. I think they had him and then had to waive him here. Because he was a Buck, and then they were like, look, Giannis, I'm sorry, it's still a business, right? Can't play favorites with nepotism or anything.
Before we go on, Bobby said the Wizards should trade Beal for as many assets as they can get. Expiring contracts and superstar trades are the currency in the NBA right now. Load up with as much as you can. You probably won't even be able to make the playoffs with him. Why run Beal into the ground with 82 games?
I'm right there with you. Couldn't have said it better myself. I'm 100% on board with trading him. I think the Heat's a likely landing spot. I think the Spurs should consider it too. I think the Spurs adding him and DeRozan out there, you have some legitimate shooters at that point. That'd be fun to watch.
I got another team for you. What about Brooklyn?
For the short term, yeah. I think the money would be an issue. But for the short term, it'd be good.
I don't know. I don't know what the contract is.
Well, they did just sign Kyrie and KD. Right, if you can find a way to make it work, and that's your big three, I think that's great. But I don't think with the guys they have, they're going to be able. I mean, you would probably have to sacrifice too much this year.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to just hold your breath and wait, get Kyrie back, KD back.
He was a Maverick.
Who's that? This brother was. Then he has. Is it the older brother they have out there in the Bucks? I know there are 2 of them on the Bucks.
So I thought there was 2 on the Bucks too.
Yeah. Too many Antetokounmpos. You think there's only one Greek freak, right? All right, moving forward here. It is the older brother with the Bucks. Thank you, Sharif, for clearing that up for me.
Told you, he's full of knowledge.
Bobby also says Bledsoe, 2 firsts to Milwaukee. It works on paper and with the contracts. I would make that move in a heartbeat. I like Eric Bledsoe, but I think he kind of disappeared when they needed him in the playoffs last year. It seemed like he wasn't ready for the moment. I liked him going all the way back to the Suns days, but I think now, is Eric Bledsoe the guy who gets you a championship? To me, he's like a Kyle Lowry. He could win if the rest of this team is just dragging him there, but he's not the guy that gets it done by himself. Sorry, Kyle Lowry fans. Sorry, Toronto fans, but I see those two guys in the same kind of scenario where neither one of them is really the championship, the guy who's going to go out and get it for you.
Why do you think I feel like the Raptors are not going to make the playoffs?
And I'm with you. Unless it's Siakam. I mean, maybe Siakam's the guy, and Kyle Lowry's the 2, and then we're talking about them being good.
I love Fred VanVleet, but we're going to need to see a whole season out of him.
Exactly. We can't have it average in those 3 points you put up this year and then have you just explode for
it doesn't work.
For 8 games.
That doesn't work.
But that's okay. We'll move forward here. We're going to talk football next. We're going to talk about the Seahawks. Jaron Reed getting suspended, defensive tackle. This is a big deal if you're a Seahawks fan or if you're a fan of basically the NFC, because now all of a sudden you have a contender that just lost Frank Clark, their best defensive lineman, and now lost their second best guy for the first 6 games of the year. This is how you set a team back, Drew. This is going to be an issue, I think.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The loss is huge for him. This team, the Seahawks, as much as this is a huge loss, as much as Frank Clark being traded is a huge loss, it seems like the Seahawks always have, with Pete Carroll as the helm of this, seems to always have the next person to take that step. Is this the final piece taken away that makes this team irrelevant on defense?
I think between Clark and him, you might be talking about another loss or 2 you might not have had. And when you have the Rams in division, when you have the Cardinals who are getting better, and the 49ers who, if they're healthy, are also getting better, There's going to be tough competition, I think.
Which all those teams are trying to throw the ball, and you need a disruption on that offensive line.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you. The other issue I have is this NFC is stacked. There are a ton of great teams in this NFC. So if you are a wild card team, you can't afford to have a bad start. I mean, the AFC is definitely the weaker conference. I think when you look at it on paper, the AFC has a couple super teams that might be the best. Through and through, the NFC is much deeper. There's going to be stiff competition for those 2 wild card spots, and that's where we saw Seattle. That's what we kind of gave them. Now you're missing 2 of your best defensive linemen. That's gonna be that loss or 2 that this might generate might be the difference to keeping them out of the playoffs.
Sharif is saying Russell Wilson is there. The Seahawks will be fine. It's kind of like a Kansas City scenario where that offense is going to explode and the defense can be below average?
Well, are they built to do that? I think Kansas City, you look at it, Kansas City has brought in nothing but weapons because they want to be that offensive, that passing team. And they knew the defense probably wasn't going to be the best in the league last year, but they said maybe we pass rush, maybe we do one thing well on the defense, we play really good offense, and that's all it takes. Seattle doesn't really have that setup. I think when you look at it, now they're missing Doug Baldwin. He's gone for good. You have Tyler Lockett. Yes, you drafted a rookie wide receiver in DK Metcalf, but you can't bet on him. Rookies take years to develop in the NFL. It's very, very rare that you have an Odell Beckham come on the scene and just make a splash as a rookie. And if he didn't make that catch, and everyone knows the catch I'm talking about, where he had caught it over the back with 2 fingers and barely got his feet in, if he didn't make that catch, we might not be talking about Odell Beckham the same way. It's tough for rookie receivers to come in and make that big of an impact.
Sharif just made the most significant point here. They have Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, exactly. Long story short, they don't have the weapons Kansas City has. I mean, I'd probably take Tyler Lockett over Sammy Watkins, but Sammy Watkins is like a 3rd or 4th option. Still much better than what Seahawks have.
And we also got to think about that their running backs cannot stay healthy. I know Chris Carson is going to be their number 1 back, but they just got rid of Mike Davis. So they're going in there with, less than what they had last year in a sense with Mike Davis being gone. If those guys can stay healthy or can't stay healthy, that offense is going to be struggling. But what we really want to talk about here is the suspension in 6 games. And I know
justified?
We talked about this prior to the show. And one thing that we do want to clarify with this suspension versus Tyreek's suspension, and we're not 100% sure that all the information with the Jaron Reed suspension has fully came out, but the Tyreek Hill stuff has slowly gone out. And the NFL has now announced that they could not get any information from any of the stuff from the police that had to do anything with the child, that had anything to do with all of that scenario. All they had was they weren't charging him. There was no file. There was no investigation anymore. The girlfriend of Tyreek Hill would not interview with the NFL. So the only thing the NFL had to go off of information was Tyreek Hill's 8-hour conversation with him. That explains why they went 8 hours with him, because they could not get any information from anyone else. That being said, did Jaron Reed scenario, did the girl talk? That information's not out.
Right.
But is that what made the 6-game suspension happen instead of like the Tyreek Hill where he's gotten, in a sense, scot-free?
Let me give you a quick overview first. Jaron Reed had a domestic violence issue or assault or some sort of domestic issue with his girlfriend back in 2017. The NFL decided to hold off until now. I don't know why all of a sudden it's now become punishable as opposed to last year, but I guess they decided they didn't have their facts. It took more than a year to research this. And now they've come back and thrown a 6-game suspension at him, who, just like people have argued with Tyreek Hill, he was not been charged. He was not arrested in Seattle. We don't have any information on what actually happened in Jaron Reed's case either. So either the NFL talked to somebody and decided they like somebody's story better than somebody else's, or the NFL, again, if there are no charges pressed, you just look inconsistent. You just look inconsistent because Tyreek Hill is in the exact same scenario. I get what you're saying about the child, because court records are sealed in juvenile cases all the time. That's not atypical.
Right.
So of course it's gonna be hard for them to get any information out of the police. I don't imagine the police are really interested in telling the NFL anything about this. Yeah. I don't imagine they're like, hey, you get the chance to make us look bad by suspending a guy we said is not guilty or didn't commit a crime.
And I think that's the best way to look at it, is that the NFL is no longer looking at, is it punishable by the justice system. They're going to go off their own investigation, and if that girlfriend or that woman was willing to interview with the NFL about the Jaron Reed scenario and vice versa, the Tyreek Hill girl did not, I think that's what damned him. I mean, it makes somewhat of sense.
You might be right, but again, if he's saying he didn't do it and she's saying she did, how can the NFL say, well, we choose to believe one person over the other?
But the NFL never sat down with And I don't,
and that is true.
And I don't know
true.
if they sat down with Reed's girlfriend either. But
Right.
it's just a point to get
It just seems incredibly arbitrary to me. The one thing I will say, since this took an extra year, maybe the NFL did actually pump the brakes a little bit when they had the Zeke Elliott and they saw all the pushback from that. You know, we had all the Roger Goodell clown shirts walking around out there where he's wearing the clown nose and everything. Maybe they took a step back and said, we need to start holding back and getting our information a little bit before we just throw suspensions out there. Maybe this is why it took an extra year. But I do believe this makes you look incredibly inconsistent when you just had Tyreek Hill off the hook, and then you're suspending a guy from 2017 when the police have said this is not an issue.
Let's jump back into Seattle because we got a couple comments here. Let me read both of them, then I'm going to let you go into responding to them. Sheree says, for some reason, Seattle always finds a running back. But on the opposite side, Ian says, Pete Carroll is on a downward slide. I see him losing the team like he started to when he left USC. I give him one more year before he leaves. So that's literally almost two opposite comments there.
Well, that's high praise coming from a Ravens fan like Sharif, right? They always find a running back. Those are two teams that always find running backs, no matter who the guy is. I'm with you. And when you can throw and you have Russell Wilson who's mobile, who can throw the way Russell Wilson does, it gets a lot easier running the ball. It just does. Defenses have so much more to worry about, so much more to defend against, so much more to think about that sometimes you're just that half step slow reacting to a running back coming up the middle. As long as you got a big guy, I think Seattle can succeed. I think Chris Carson can do it. I still like Penny that they have. Yeah. On top of it, I think they're going to be just fine at running back. Do I think they're going to be stellar, either one of those guys? Probably not, but they might be worth like a late round addition in fantasy because they're going to run the ball.
Well, Carson might be, if you're in dire need, second round maybe.
They're going to run the ball. Dire need, yeah.
They're going to be running the ball.
If you go receiver first round and Chris Carson's your only option, I say bite the bullet and take it.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry. We're going to have a fantasy football.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to have all kinds of breakdowns.
Absolutely.
I think second round's a little high, but you never know. Maybe I feel a little bit different when we see actually how fast these running backs come off the board. Also, going to the Pete Carroll thing, Ian, it's interesting. I have heard reports, and I've heard all kinds of stuff saying he loses guys. When they grow up, or whatever you want to call it, when they go from being a 22, 23, 24-year-old, that message that Pete Carroll kind of instills in these guys seems to ring a lot truer than when they get closer to 30. So there's a history of him losing guys and everything else. The question is going to be, with this team getting younger, do they just revitalize? Do they find enough talent? I mean, they got the Griffins now. On defense, they still have Wagner. They still have KJ Wright for next year. They've still got some playmakers on this defense. Are they going to need to have that next tier of talent step up? Yeah, but I think as long as Russell Wilson's in this roster, it's almost that insulation against you. I mean, let's face it, they haven't had a losing season since he's been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that next year's as good of a... I can't say next year he's going to be out.
Yeah. Hey, Nestor, I'm not trying to ignore your comment, man. We can't get into the Cowboys. As far as your coach goes, hey, you guys keep going to the playoffs. I think you're going to have the same head coach moving forward. Bobby, he says, this is obviously a massive loss. He's talking about losing Jaron Reed for 6 games. Even if it's temporary for the Seahawks defensive line that already saw Frank Clark traded to Kansas City earlier in the offseason, when week 1 comes around, Seahawks leading sacker from 2018 will be tied between Quentin Griffin and Jacob Martin, whom both had 3. And let's also remind everyone else.
They did sign Ziggy Ansah, if I remember
right. But let's also remind everyone else that maybe a huge reason why those guys got 3 is because Frank Clark was so disruptive on the other side. I mean, that is honestly something that needs to be talked about.
That is the optimist way to look at it. It is. I think Frank Clark was absolutely phenomenal in his contract year.
I'm not saying he's going to do that in Kansas City.
I'm
just saying he did that last year.
He did. I'd be worried as a Seahawks fan. I think Bobby is 100% right. You need to be worried in this scenario because you look at this defensive line. You've now lost your 1 and 2 guys from last time. I know he's a defensive tackle, but he's still a leader in that sense of, hey, guys, you got to follow me because Frank's gone now. You're going to miss him for the first 6 games. That is going to be an impact here. I'm 100% with you, Bobby. This is going to be a huge loss.
And the NFC at all, you can't take 6 games off and find yourself in the playoffs.
You can't take 3 off. I mean, totally agree.
You're right. I mean, that is AFC. Okay, maybe NFC. No way. No way.
All right, guys. One more thing before we talk about the Giants. I want to talk about Odell Beckham and the kind of shade he threw today. And Drew, I want to ask you, man. Yeah. Are you going to drink to this?
Probably.
I'm going to read this quote, and then you tell me if you agree. If you agree, you tell me you drink to it. If you don't, obviously, you got to keep the beer down. But I'm going to read this, and I want to get your guys' opinion, too. Let me know if you drink to this and whether Odell Beckham's in the right or the wrong.
I better take a drink first.
So here's what he said. He said, I felt disrespected. Like, after everything I've done for them, this is me being honest. This team has not been good for the last 6 years. I felt like I was the main reason at keeping that brand alive. They were still getting primetime games, still, as a 5-11 team. Why? Because people want to see the show. You want to see me play. Is he right to call the Giants out in that kind of manner? Has he been the driving force for the Giants and their viewership?
Can I half drink?
You can. Yeah. Take a sip. Yeah, cheers. But look, when I read this, he's right.
He is.
But he came about it the wrong way, right?
Extremely the wrong
You sound
way.
like a douche. That's all I can say. You sound like a douche when you phrase it that way. Like, dude, I'm the only one who kept anyone interested in this team since I've been there.
As the first thing I would do as a Giants GM or owner or whatever is literally go play 16 games first.
Absolutely. But beyond just the injury thing, I mean, they were getting primetime games even with the injuries.
Play 16 games. You know why? Because they have a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. And the NFL did not want to die on Eli Manning. And they have Saquon Barkley. Does Odell Beckham Jr. help that scenario? Absolutely.
You lost me, but then you brought me back in. It's not because of Eli.
You can't.
It's really
yes,
not.
it is. It
I don't think so.
absolutely is because of Eli.
I don't
because
think so.
the Giants organization is one of those iconic franchises in the NFL. More iconic than both of our favorite teams.
Yes.
So
they are. But
and they have a 2-time winning bowl super quarterback, also Super Bowl MVP 2 times. And then they have
that's looked like garbage since then,
does
right?
Not matter.
It does
two
matter.
Exciting,
100%
two
matters.
exciting offensive players, and he is part of that. But he is not the only reason behind that.
Maybe in years past, I'd say he's right. Maybe early on in his career, I'd say he's right. But these past couple of years where he hasn't been healthy, and then you got Saquon Barkley as well, you're not the only show in this team. The reason this team is on prime time is because it's New York. And a lot of journalists, a lot of media members' favorite team happen to be the New York Giants. I think when you have that big of a market and you have the media coverage, yes, they're going to be critical of the team, but they're also going to be talking about the team. So the NFL is going to put the teams that are going to get the most eyes on them on their primetime games. Does Odell Beckham help that? Of course he does. Does Odell Beckham the reason for that purely? No, I think this is a little too much of, him overvaluing himself. Again, like you said, if you would have played 16 games all the way through and you would have been a superstar all the way through, I would have said, yeah, he's right. Yeah. Even though this is a hard pill to swallow for Giants fans to listen to, he's right. But this guy's missing games left and right. He is hurt all the time. You can't tell me that the NFL couldn't have flexed some of those primetime games away.
Let me get to some of these comments real quick. Steven says they're also a New York team, which you're getting at. He says,
let me get some of these beers real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. He I'm done. Even if they suck primetime games, their games will still come. Sharif says, same guy who also won a vote before a playoff game. And Sharif also says Eli did beat Brady twice in Super Bowls 2-0. He's just saying. I mean, let's be honest. As much as Eli has lost a lot of talent, we were talking about this too because we're going to be talking about the Giants today. And I'll just jump into what I was going to say about Eli is he's not an average quarterback. He's not above average quarterback. He's below average. But how many other teams have below average quarterbacks? The problem is not all of them are 2-time Super Bowl winning champions either.
And just by definition, half the teams have below average quarterbacks. We talked about that. But I got to say this. I think when you look at it, Eli's probably bottom 5 at this point in the NFL. Or at the very least, you'd be willing to go with a young guy instead of Eli Manning for the potential. I also think this. The NFL is very much a what have you done for me lately kind of league. Despite beating Tom Brady twice, despite beating the Patriots twice in the playoffs, for the past 4, 5, 6 years, he's looked terrible, has not helped this Giants team win. It's been time to move on from Eli Manning. Yes, he's held this team back 100%. Is Daniel Jones going to be much better? I don't know, but
he's your guy.
Yeah, he's my guy because I shook his hand.
Yeah, and took a picture with him.
He was a nice guy. I hope he succeeds. I don't think he will, but I hope he does.
He said he looked like you, but he's 6 foot what?
6 foot too tall is what he was. I felt like a shrimp next to him. I did, and I'm 5'10". I'm not the smallest guy. I'm right around average. Then I got next to him. I was like,
"Is that average now?" I don't know. I'm
5'9" is the American average, by the way. I'm 5'10", slightly above average, just like this podcast.
Just below it,
slightly above average. I will say this though about Daniel Jones, very nice guy. I haven't seen on film that he's going to succeed. I want him to. I really do. Maybe he's got something. Maybe you could argue it's Duke's system that was terrible. I don't know that that's not the truth, but you can't pin every success that the Giants have had on your shoulders, Odell. You just can't do it. Especially when this team has been this bad. Yeah, they were 5-11, but guess what? You were on that team. You could have made them better than that. You could have taken some games over.
Yeah,
if you were healthy, maybe they would have been better than 5-11, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think. Bobby says the NFL players are taking a page from the NBA players. They're exercising themselves as big brand for those top of the line guys who are going to hold out and are going to showcase themselves to make as much money as they can while they're still there. Most of which are signed with cloth sports. I don't know what he meant to say there, which we know is LeBron's company. So I don't know how to say that word. So I apologize.
I get you. He might have meant Clutch Sports. I think that's what he meant to talk about, the agents. Yeah, that
maybe that's
might have been
what
he was thinking about, but I'm not 100% sure. Also, Sharif said, good luck, Baker, with that, and I couldn't agree more. And let me tell you why. This is what's worrying me about the Cleveland Browns organization. All this talk, all the not showing up to practice, everything else that we're talking about, all this drama, all this manufactured drama. The problem is you can be a talented team, just like the Eagles were in, 2011, when they were the super team. You can be as talented as you want and then not do the little things, and the margins are so tight in the NFL, it can cost you. I am worried about this.
Yeah.
This isn't something I want to have the guy I just traded for telling a magazine in the offseason.
Yeah.
This is something that I want to come out after we won the Super Bowl, and he can complain about that team he just came from, right? Like, they disrespected me. Look what I've done because of it. Don't tell me about something. Show me why they should miss you. And I still believe he's a great player, but all these attitudes, they can break bad if you have a bad start. And you have a rookie head coach on top of it that's got to manage all these guys. Yeah. Cleveland's got some concerns.
No, they do. Bobby, he said it was Clutch Sports, says too much beer. That's a good problem to have, man. I always have that problem, it seems like. Jeremy, I'm glad you could join us, man. You're halfway through the episode. You can't decide what you want.
He's getting earlier.
Well, no,
on average.
He was here early.
I know.
And then he was late, and now he's in the middle. I don't understand.
Nestor wants to know if we have a phone number. We are exploring the options to have call-ins to the show because we want to hear from you guys. It's always been about what you guys think. We're exploring that. Again, the question is going to be, can I make it happen on the tech side? As of yet, the answer is no. But we're hoping.
But remember, you can always message us and let us know what you're wanting to talk about or thinking about. By all means, go ahead and comment during the show. We'll try to do our best we can. I know you want to talk to Cowboys, man. Just hold off. We will get to them because we will get off topic and we will never finish this show.
Also, Sharif says Eli goes 1-4. Is it better if he gets pulled? Yes. I think at that point, just roll the dice and roll with the kid. Even though I think the kid is definitely more of a development project than a lot of other quarterbacks are. Even as a rookie, I think he's got some more growing to do than some of these other guys. Jeremy says, Daniel Jones better be better if he went in the first round. From our standpoint, yes. I'm going to even come back and criticize him if he's not, right? I'm sure we will, because we're in the media. I guess we're media guys now, and right, we'll be like, this is what you spent the 6th pick on. But if you're the Giants and you're the GM, it's all water under the bridge. It doesn't matter how much guys are getting paid now. It doesn't matter where they were drafted. All that matters is, can I get the most out of whatever asset you are? I want to see him improve in 2019. I don't necessarily need to see him be good. He can have a Sam Darnold kind of like first year where it's not ideal, but we're seeing improvement each and every week. I think if I see that, Jeremy, I'm okay with him even going that early in the draft.
Street's hard to say Daniel Jones is trash.
Street might be right. I'm not 100% sure. I want him to be good, and there's a very good chance we can pin this all on Duke and that offense they run.
I'm not on that many beers, man. What did I say?
I think was it the Clutch Sports thing? I don't know.
No, Sharif said, damn, Uncle Drew, how many beers you on?
No more than usual.
None of your damn business is what it is.
Sharif, again, I don't know how much is Daniel Jones, but some guys draft guys based on talent, right? Based on physical ability. And we know Daniel Jones is tall. He's not a mobile quarterback, but he's a guy that's gonna have a decent arm, and he's going to be able to sling the rock a little bit. I think when you look at this guy, a lot of NFL guys say, I can fix that. Do I think that's the best approach to drafting? No, absolutely I don't, but that's where they're going.
Guys, I know Jeremy and Sharif, you're all talking about wanting to call in on the show. Guys, I promise we're working on it, but one thing we have to remember, this is the internet, and there's a lot of people out there that are a little...
Anything goes. It's the internet, right?
Yeah,
it's not like radio. We're working on it.
It's something we have to work on.
It's in the works. That's all I can promise. That is all I can promise. I just got our guest thing figured out. I mean, it took me a year to figure this out, but I finally got it figured out.
We've offered a lot of things so far that have yet to work out.
Absolutely. Well, I do have clothing. We didn't talk about that. We're going to talk about that later. Also, guys, we appreciate each and every one of you. We want to talk with you, too. I'm working on it. That's all I can promise. Is there an ETA? No. There's not an ETA. But hopefully down the road, you'll be able to call in and offer your opinions on everything. Jeremy says he'll be good. I hope so. But hopefully no better than us.
You can't be any worse than Jake.
That is true. Moving forward.
Let's move forward.
We're done with Odell Beckham. Let's talk about the Giants now. Let's talk about where he just left. Let's talk about the dumpster fire that is the Giants. Is it a dumpster fire still?
Is it?
I wanted to say yes, and then we were working on this prep, and I was like, okay, all right. I like where this is going. Somewhat.
Jeremy, I promise the merch is coming, man. I promise it is. It's
also in the works.
If you don't remember, we had some... Not in our hands, but we had the conversations going, and it just totally backfired on us extremely. Okay, do we fall in love with the names of draft picks, free agent signings, and what they're doing to replace players that weren't very good? Because I feel like that's what we always do when we get super excited and teams let us down.
Mm-hmm.
But we're... Not to ruin anything, but are we that high on the Giants?
Well, they won 5 games last year, right? They were 5-11, which is probably about 3 or 4 more wins than I would have given them when Odell Beckham got hurt.
Right.
As soon as Beckham was out, and maybe I am on Odell's side. I'm like, as soon as he went out, I was like, this team's done. But they managed to have a little bit of a running game. I get it. The stats were not great. They were 24th on average, but they kept pounding the rock with Saquon Barkley. They kept rolling. Where they really shined was the passing game. They were 11th to make the 17th best offense. This is a team. Kind of like I complained about in the Tampa Bay episode when I said Tampa Bay's only good at like one facet of the game, which is passing. This is a team that should be decent at offense in 2019, right? I mean, they've worked on the offensive line. They brought in Mike Demers to play right tackle, probably. They've also drafted. They have Will Hernandez, who looked good as a guard. They didn't draft. They brought in Zeitler in a trade. Right. Even though I don't like giving up Olivier Vernon, they brought in Kevin Zeitler as well to kind of balance things out on this offensive line. This is a team. They paid Nate Solder that should be good on the offensive line, has a good running back in Saquon Barkley, and has respectable receivers. I mean, Evan Ingram, Golden Tate now in free agency, and Sterling Shepard on the other side. That's a pretty good starting 3, right?
No, it absolutely is. And you got to also think about how atrocious that right side was. I mean, Eric Flowers was their starting right tackle. I mean, he should never have been there.
Right.
And they bring in Zeitler at right guard, who is arguably so much better than both those guys, probably combined at right guard. Unfortunately, He does not play right tackle. But the inner part of that offensive line, even though the run offense was only 24, you got to think with Barkley, that has to increase. The question is, how much does it increase? And we talked about this a little bit. I mean, is it above 15? Is it above 10? I mean, are they the 10th best running offense into 2019 season in the NFL?
They should be. And this is why I like Saquon Barkley, because they have built this offensive lineup to support him a little bit. That has been the Giants' weakness for years now, right? Nobody's been able to block. We remember all those Eli Manning sacks where nobody's touching him. He's just like crumpling on the ground, and you just come up and touch him. That should be a thing of the past. Whether it's Eli Manning or Daniel Jones, you should not have that kind of pressure on Eli. You should have a little bit more to throw the ball. And on top of it, they should be making some more gaps for Saquon Barkley to run through. I think when you look at this team, at the very least, this offense looks like it's solid. I'm not going to call them great. They're not going to go be the new Chiefs where they're just dunking on everybody, right? And they're not going to be the Rams where they're doing anything super creative, especially with Gettleman. I don't want to say calling the shots, but calling the shots. I think when you look at this offense, they have all the pieces where they should be good. This should be a top 10 offense conglomerately next year as opposed to 17th like they finished last year.
And we talked about them adding in Tate after Odell Beckham Jr. left. But I think the most important piece on offense is Ingram. If he could stay healthy for 16 games, I mean, did you see how much he exploded that offense?
He's their best receiver.
Yeah, he exploded the offense at the end of the season last year. There's no doubt about it. I want to get to some of these comments. Jeremy says Eli wasn't horrible as far as the stats go.
Yeah, but you got to ask yourself, is Eli helping us win these games? He's not mobile at all at this point. He's one of those guys that absolutely needs to stand 100% still. So just like I've been saying forever, maybe if you put together an amazing offensive line and you keep this guy 100% safe, he'll look like an average to somewhat better than average quarterback. The problem is it seems like Eli doesn't have any fight left in him. This guy's supposed to be leading your team, and you see him on the sideline like Jay Cutler face on and everything, where he's just like, ugh. I'm just collecting my money and waiting until retirement, I guess. I don't know.
No doubt about it.
I get what you're saying, Jeremy. He wasn't the worst guy in the world, but on the reverse of that, he wasn't winning games for you either. There wasn't a game that I can even point to that I was like, man, if they didn't have Eli Manning, they don't win that game.
No, Saquon Barkley, yes.
Yes. 1.9 yards at a time, some of these games, where he's just pounding up the middle where there's no running room.
Right.
And then eventually he winds up breaking one.
I did
or
my
he winds
fantasy.
up grinding for a touchdown.
I cried some games. Ian says the Giants will be lucky to win 6, but injuries will be key and could cost them 2 games. So he sees them between 4 and 6 wins depending on their health.
Not much improvement from last year. And let's talk about why. I think he's somewhat right, because this was the 24th rated defense from last year, and they got a lot worse. They lost the only truly elite player, I believe, on this defense in Landon Collins. Let him go for too much money. I give him credit for not making that mistake that the Redskins did, paying this guy the 6-year, $84 million contract for a safety. Insane. I know, he's driving up that money for Kevin Byard. Thanks a lot, you jerk. But I think when you look at it, them losing Olivier Vernon, their only decent pass rusher, and not doing a good job replacing him, this is going to be really, really difficult. They brought in a lot of lower-tier players to try to replace some guys. Nobody of note. The best thing I can say is they drafted O'Shane Ximines, defensive end out of Old Dominion, who I think is just okay in the 3rd round, which is a spot to be taking okay players, but this kid is not going to be... He's not going to be Bradley Chubb coming in from last year, where he's going to make 12 sacks as a rookie. He's going to get 3 or 4 or 5, and the Giants are going to have no pass rush whatsoever.
And I'm right there with you. I think the pass rush is going to be the hugest loss. I actually think their secondary, even with the loss of Landon Collins, might have got just a tad bit better, because you look at Bethea and you look at Peppers being added in through trade and free agency, and we do like their draft picks at corner when they bring in DeAndre Baker in the first round. Sorry, with their 3rd pick in the 1st round, and we also like Julian Love as well in the 4th round. I mean, it might not be this year. But maybe next year, we're talking about one of the most elite.
That was going to be my final thoughts for the Giants, Drew.
Oh, well, I stole it from you.
Well, one thing I will say is, Bethea is not going to be around forever, but Jabril Peppers is young. As a strong safety, as a run support guy, he's going to be good. On top of it, you also have DeAndre Baker, who is my favorite corner in this draft. Not because he's the biggest, not because he's the fastest. He is the guy that plays both man and zone coverage really well. He's a very technique-oriented cornerback, and I think that gets overlooked a lot by the guy who runs fast or the guy who's tall, the guy who jumps. I think DeAndre Baker out of Georgia might wind up being my favorite guy out of this draft in a stacked draft full of cornerbacks. I like this kid. I think he's going to be probably the one that hits the ground running fastest in the NFL out of those top-end cornerbacks. Julian Love, underrated guy in the 4th round. But cornerback, I complain about this all the time, is a growth spot in the NFL. You don't draft a guy and he fixes the position. He needs 2 to 3 to 4 years to grow into it in the NFL, because it's the hardest position. Nobody talks about you when you're good, but when you're bad, everybody knows your name.
Talks about it.
Exactly.
No doubt. I got to get to this comment because Ty, it was long and you took long enough to type it. I gotta be able to read it for you. I guess this is Ty. I guess in a sense you can't be mad at Odell or understand his frustration. The way he handles this situation is childish, hands down. Him leaving the Giants to go to the Browns, I think, was a bad move. Remember, it was a trade. I would like to...
But they don't trade him if he's not happy. I know you got the rest of this comment.
I would like to see him with the Giants before I would with the Browns. But he was already given up on being a Giant. Overall, they are a better team with him. And him on the Browns doesn't trade the same potential. He should have tried to go elsewhere.
Remember, he doesn't get to pick. This is all about what is the best thing I can get. And Dave Gettleman, formerly of the Panthers, is now the GM for the Giants. And what have the Panthers' MO always been? Let's play defense. Let's run the ball. And I think that's what the Giants are trying to set up. They drafted Saquon Barkley 2nd overall, even though that should have been Bradley Chubb. Still upset about that. They drafted Saquon. I love Saquon. I love him. I think he's a great player. But I think you can get a lot of great running backs when you have a great offensive line. They have built this offensive line. They traded Odell Beckham for Kevin Zeitler to try to shore up this offensive line for their, 38-year-old quarterback now in Eli Manning? 39? I think he's 38 this year.
Yeah.
So they're going to try to protect Eli, and they're going to try to run the rock. Dave Gettleman got what he could to try to build the best Giants team that he could. When you trade Odell Beckham, he's not happy. You got to move him out, right? we talk about it all the time. Morale in locker rooms is huge. And if he is all of a sudden become a liability because he's upset about things, and he's even said, like, I wasn't upset, I wasn't complaining to the media and stuff. Sure, you're right. In that sense, I never saw Odell Beckham come out and say, this team's trash, I wish I wasn't on it.
Maybe minus that comment.
Well, yeah, now we see it. But I'm saying, like, when he was there, we didn't see it. But that doesn't mean you're not talking to guys in the locker room saying, man, if I was out in the field, we'd be killing it right now. Or Eli can't find me. Or anything else. Just because he's not going to the media and crying every time something happens doesn't mean he's not going to other guys complaining about a situation, because that's what you do with your friends, right? I do it at work. You do it at work. Yeah. When management's sitting there complaining or giving you a hard time, you go to somebody you know and you be like, man, this is unfair. This is some crap.
So Bobby's sitting there saying, I'm assuming to Ty's comment, why in the world wouldn't OBJ not want to play with Baker Mayfield, who's arguably the youngest and hungriest as quarterback, not named Patrick Mahomes? The Browns not have a legitimate one now. Go back and get a fresh start with a new place to be the man with the Super Bowl aspirations. How is that not a better fit? I don't think Ty was saying that's not a better fit. I think Ty literally said that the Browns are going to be a better team because Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be there. What he is saying is, if Odell Beckham Jr. had an option, you'd rather see him with the Patriots
in a bigger market, right,
or like somewhere where he might have
Cleveland's
a chance.
Got a great following.
Hey, it absolutely does. But I think that Ty's point was, Odell Beckham Jr., if he had an option, would want to be somewhere where it's more likely to win a Super Bowl. I mean, maybe.
Can you imagine him and Julio lining up together? Would you trade Calvin Ridley for him? I think I would. I like Calvin Ridley, but man, Odell and Julio Jones on the field together.
I would almost think about
trading Julio first. Blasphemy. I don't care that he's 30. Blasphemy. And I'm the GM guy. Blasphemy.
I mean, can you imagine, though?
That'd be fun to watch.
It would be fun to watch.
Julio I get what you're saying, Ty.
Would be amazing.
I get what you're saying. Cleveland's not the sexy city. It's not the sexy place to land. But let's not forget Baker Mayfield had a great start as a rookie. You still have a halfway decent offensive line. I forget what the kid's name is, but they did have the heir apparent to Kevin Zeitler, which is why they were okay with letting him go. I think he was a second-round pick. Again, I can't remember what his name is for the life of me right now, but they have another guard who's ready to step in and fill those shoes. I think when you look at Cleveland, they got running backs. They already have Jarvis Landry. They have Njoku, who we believe can be a decent tight end, especially now that we're in year 3 or 4 for Njoku, and this is where guys really hit their stride at tight end.
Definitely.
You got Baker Mayfield throwing the rock. The defense is getting better. I think Cleveland's on the up and up. I don't think that's that bad of a landing spot.
Will says Odell Beckham Jr. to Tampa Bay. Of course, you're always going to say that, man. I know you're joking.
Can you afford him?
You always want him there, don't you?
Exactly.
And then Scott says,
don't you have enough receivers?
OBJ did not show up in the playoffs. Can you fully...
There have been a lot of years they didn't make the playoffs, too. I mean, when he's younger...
Can you fully blame him without the experience of the playoff games?
Exactly. I mean, that's something... There's that old saying, you got to lose one before you win one. I don't think Odell's had a lot of opportunity in the playoffs either.
Look at arguably the best wide receiver out there, Hopkins. I mean, his first couple of playoff experiences are
early outs, but I wasn't like, man,
but I wouldn't blame him. But you can't sit there and blame Odell Beckham Jr. for the loss the Giants had, can you?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, but you're right. You got to lose one before you win one.
I totally agree with you. Okay.
Do we go? I think we go on into the schedule. I think it's time to get into the schedule.
I'm ready. I'm absolutely ready. All right, let's talk about their first week, and they get the Cowboys. I know Nestor's been waiting for this. He's been waiting for us to talk Dallas Cowboys. It's time to talk Dallas Cowboys.
I hope you're still there, Nestor.
Absolutely.
We've literally got to the point where it's time to talk about it.
On the road, the Giants going up against a defense like this. There's a potential that we don't have Zeke Elliott here. Let's say he holds out and Jerry Jones sticks to his guns and say, man, just wait your turn. It's not your turn to get paid yet. I don't think that happens, but there's a chance it does. Can the Cowboys beat this team without Zeke? Yes, they can. I'll answer that for you. I know you're thinking about it.
No. I was thinking about how I'm going to put my words in. Yes, because that Cowboys defense is healthy. They had another offseason together. That linebacking core can shut down the best weapons the Giants have in Ingram and Barkley. I don't see any chance that the Giants can beat the Cowboys.
I think attitude is a huge part. And as much as I wanted to go into this saying DeMarcus Lawrence, now that he's paid, might take this game off, might come a little bit, not quite as hard. But Well, yes, because when he's their best defensive player, arguably on defense, it matters. But I think you kind of get that fire reignited a little bit when Madden gave him that 89, and he's calling all Cowboys fans to boycott the game. I think they're going to come out fired. Fired up. I think the Cowboys are going to be, whether this is Zeke Elliott running the rock or not, the Giants don't have the defense to stop them. I think when you look at it, this team, both defensively, is stacked. And then on the offensive line, should be good, should be healthy.
Right.
I think they're going to have success on the ground regardless against this team. I don't think they've got the guys that are going to shut down Rod Smith. They don't have guys who are going to stop Alfred Morris. I don't even know that Alfred Morris is still there. But they don't have guys to stop these Cowboys running backs no matter who it is. Zeke is the icing on the cake.
No, I get what you're saying. But honestly, even if I just blanked out on his name. They're more getting it. The linebacking core stops every offensive weapon that the Giants are trying to put out there. Not that I don't think Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard cannot put up stats and points. I don't think it matters because they're going to try to run the rock. And when they do little play action fakes, they're going to expect Ingram to be healthy. And with Van Der Esch and Smith covering him, I don't see that happening.
I'm right there with you. Now, Ian also says, with Cleveland, paper isn't the field. Let's see how the Browns' chemistry before anyone crowns them. I'm right there with you, and I think you got a good point.
Yeah.
I'm 100% in agreement, man. I think when you look at it, I've been saying it forever. Rookie head coach, that can be a couple mistakes that cost you a game or two. You've got all these new egos coming into the locker room, bunch of new guys that got to get used to each other. That can spell failure right there.
But then he also went off and commented that he could see this being as a win for New York Giants and get the fans false hope for Week 1. I don't see it, man.
We talked about it. We did talk about it.
No,
right?
we
considered it.
In
They said,
New York.
how can they beat the Cowboys? And I said, Week 1 is probably the best shot because their second week is Week 9. When you take a quarterback 6 overall by Week 9, he's usually expected to be out there. I don't know that Daniel Jones beats this team. I think if anything,
Week 9 if we're
Eli Manning pulls some magic out of his hat, and we see him wind up coming away with the win Week 1 on the road. Fired up Cowboys, like I said. DeMarcus Lawrence is fresh off that disrespect from the Madden game. I think this is Dallas winning. I think Amari Cooper is going to absolutely torch some rookie cornerbacks on top of it.
Everyone's saying that the Giants are going to win this game. Ty is saying the Giants don't need a defense to stop Prescott, and the Giants are going to win 17-10. Book it.
Oh, book it. That's a big statement, Ty. I will say this, man. They need a defense to stop Amari Cooper. They need a defense to stop this offensive line, who should absolutely blow these no-name guys off the ground.
This might be the best game Jason Witten gives the Cowboys, too.
It might be. It might be, yeah.
I mean, it arguably could be.
And they don't have the linebackers to stop them. You signed Alec Ogletree a couple of years ago,
right?
Getting him from the Rams. But does he alone take every tight end of the game? No. I mean, I like Ogletree. I think he's a good player. He's not a great player, in my opinion. Moving forward here, I think it's a loss. I think the Cowboys have too much. They're going to be ready. They're going to be looking at this like we need to win every game with the Eagles in this division, with the Redskins in this division. We need to win every game. I can't give it to the Cowboys. I think maybe it's 17-10 the other way, Ty. And you're right, Week 1 is unpredictable. But I'm going to go 17-10 the other way just because you look at the stacked talent in the squad. I gotta go Cowboys.
Yeah. Week 2, they go home and they face the Bills. This Bills team, we know what their defense is going to be. Or at least in the past couple of years, we know what this defense is going to be. But offensively, we think that this team has taken the right steps, the right direction to put up points against a weak defense like the Giants are going to put on the field.
Let me kind of contrast between Week 2 and Week 3. We have Week 2 as a loss with the Buffalo Bills because they play good defense historically. They still have a lot of good defenders. Even though they just drafted Ed Oliver, he's going to be a question mark on the inside of the line. I still think he's a good player. I think he was value where they got him. The difference between Week 2 and then Week 3 when they go on the road with the Buccaneers is 100% what do these defenses look like. I think the Giants, if you can run the rock a little bit, you can take offenses on the other side of the game on the other side of the ball out of the game.
Right.
The Bills, you're not going to take that offense out of the game because that defense is going to stifle Saquon Barkley. It's going to be like last year. You're going to see a lot of 2 yards a carry out of this guy in this game because they're so good at stopping it. They're so good at stopping the run. Yeah. The Bucs are not going to be, which is why they're going to beat them. But I think the Bills are going to absolutely be the team that the Giants don't want to see because they're going to run the ball. Your defense is not set up to stop them. And on top of it, they're going to play good defense that's going to keep your team off the field.
So we're going completely against what Ty said, and it's there to go 0-2 into Week 3 against the Bucs in Tampa Bay. Ian says the Bills will win that 21-7.
I think it might even be higher scoring.
Yeah, I think it might be higher scoring.
I think we're
than that.
underestimating how well the Bills are going to run the rock and how poorly the Giants are going to defend the run.
But we believe in Week 3 in Tampa Bay, this is a winnable game for the Giants because it's two defenses who are struggling to stop people.
And Will, if you're still watching, man, I hate it for you, but your Buccaneers don't have the defense to keep Saquon Barkley from just chewing you up on the ground. They just don't.
And if it became a shootout, do you think Eli can shoot out?
It's not going to be a shootout because they're just going to run at will. Like, Devin White is not going to take this game over. Vita Vea and Devin White have, like, all the onus on their shoulders right now. Gerald McCoy is gone. You've lost a great tackler in Kawan Alexander, who's now out there in the 49ers. They have so many question marks in this game. Saquon is going to – this is the game you bounce back a little bit.
You don't think Sue and Vita Vea can stop Saquon?
Single-handedly? No, because I think you can run off left tackle. And then those D tackles aren't really that big of an issue. Plus, what did they work on? Their offensive guards. You have Zeitler. You have Will Hernandez, who's looking good.
No doubt.
They're going to be able to handle these D tackles on the inside, or at the very least, keep them from getting into the backfield too early to interrupt the play. The Giants are going to be able to run here.
Yeah.
And if they can run, you can win as the Giants, as this Giants team.
So this is the first win. Week 4 and Week 5, they're at home. They get to stay there, but they face the Redskins with the individual rival, and they find the Vikings coming into town. These are two tough defenses and two teams that love to run the rock. Well, the Vikings are going to start running the rock.
Supposedly.
Can the Giants beat two teams like this with two defenses that should be good?
No. I mean, we gave them double losses here back-to-back, even though the Redskins are in division. Everyone says it gets difficult. Again, I think the entire key to the Giants' success is, are we going to be able to run it all? I think the Vikings will be good at stopping the run. I think the Redskins will be great at stopping the run. And on top of it, you look at these other two teams, they both want to run the rock as well. I think when the going gets tough, both the Redskins and the Vikings will be able to play ball control. They'll be able to keep the Giants out of rhythm. If this is still Eli Manning, I'm going to call it a win because I don't think Daniel Jones is ready to go in against these defenses yet.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm laughing at Ian's comments. He said Tampa Bay will come out of the top 6 and 7 boring game against the Bucs, and then he says JPP will also get a sack.
I don't see that happening. He has a broken neck. If you don't remember,
from the sideline, he's going to get a sack. No, Week 4 and Week 5, I think both these teams, even though they're trying to do completely opposite things offensively, defensively, they stop a team like the Giants. We see them as both losses. At Week 6, they go on the road in New England to face the Patriots. Now, this has been the kryptonite of the Patriots for a long time in the Super Bowls. Is that going to be the kryptonite in the regular season?
Potentially. Maybe Eli has like a little bit of juice left in him just to beat Tom Brady and just to stick it in the Patriots fans' eyes. But I when I look at this game, man, it's got to be a win for the Patriots on the road in Foxborough. It's Week 6. By now, the Patriots have those couple surprise losses out of the way, and they're like, okay, time to start playing football, right?
Right.
Even though they don't have the defense, even though I think Saquon might have a decent game in this one, I also look at this and I say, who is going to stop Tom Brady from throwing this all over the yard? You've got two rookie corners that are likely to be the starting guys for this team, in Julian Love and DeAndre Baker. Even if they're not starters, they're going to be playing a lot of snaps against the Patriots, who like to have a lot of receivers in the field.
Right.
You're not stopping this Patriot offense. If I have to pick a team in the shootout, I think I got to go Patriots here.
Ty, we absolutely love the comment. He says Chris Thompson is going to tear up the Giants if he's healthy.
He's going to tear something.
We both.
It might be his
like
ACL.
Chris Thompson, though.
He's going to tear something. We do. I don't like his durability, but I love him when he's on the field. I'm 100% with you. Chris Thompson will absolutely destroy this Giants defense because he is so dynamic when he's on the field, so dynamic when he's healthy. The problem is the guy just can't stay on the field. He's the best 8-game starter in fantasy. If you want to get off to a good start, go draft Chris Thompson.
No doubt about it. Week 7 and Week 8. They get on Week 7 at home. They get the Cardinals on the road. They find themselves in Detroit against the Lions. These are out-of-division rivals, but we see these two games go in opposite directions. They're not 2 losses. They're not 2 wins. They're going 50-50.
Yeah, we see them beating the Cardinals at home. Again, what do the Cardinals not do? Defend the run. I know they brought in Jordan Hicks, and all Cardinals fans are going to say, oh, we're getting better at that. They don't have the D tackles yet, in my opinion. They're good at edge rushing, but when you're a team like the Giants that doesn't need to throw and maybe isn't looking to throw as much as other teams, it's not going to be as big of an impact. I think they'll be able to make an impact with Saquon Barkley. We're going to see these corners, we're going to see these receivers still take advantage of Patrick Peterson, who's fresh off a suspension. This will be his first game of the NFL season. Meanwhile, we have Golden Tate, and we also have Sterling Shepard, who now have 6 games under their belt. It's going to be tough for Patrick Peterson to come out of the gate firing against an offense like this. They also don't have the receivers to cover Evan Ingram. If the Giants can play offense and they don't have to face that good of an offense, they can win the game.
No doubt about it. In Week 8, when they go to Detroit, they're going to be facing Snack Harrison, who they traded away last year, and they're also facing Darius Slay, one of the best corners in the league. This is another one of those defenses that we see that can be able to shut down the Lions. Offensively, where do you see this game going? Either the Lions or the Giants. I mean, is this going to be a high-scoring game, or do you think this is going to be a low-scoring game?
When I look at the Lions, I think it'll be a little bit more low-scoring. I think it might actually be a little bit more of a blowout. I think the Lions might have this game in hand. They want to run the rock just like the Giants do. These are two defenses that the Lions are much further along than the Giants are. You look at Snacks Harrison on that line. You now look at Trey Flowers there. They're going to be good at defending the run. Maybe not great, but they'll be better at defending the run than the Giants will be. I look at the Giants' defense. You have Alec Ogletree in the front 7. Everyone else, I'm like, they're just guys.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. They're just guys. And Alec Ogletree, I look at him and I'm not like, oh no, watch out. They have the best linebacker in football. They don't have anything spectacular in the front 7. They have some young guys in the secondary that this year is going to be about growth. But right now, I got to go Lions here because the Lions have Snacks Harrison. They have Trey Flowers as well. Right. They are certainly much better off.
Week 9, at home, they get the Cowboys.
We thought about it, guys. We did.
We talked about it. But no, there's no way. Zeke, for sure, will be back at this point in time if he's suspended at all. This is a game the Cowboys will... I think this is a game they dominate.
Hold out. Maybe suspension, too. I mean, Zeke's got a lot of issues at this point. He wants to hold out. He wants to get suspended by...
He'll be back at this point, right?
For knocking a bouncer over? Maybe. Well, I don't know. It was, 6 games last time?
Well...
Is it 10 this year? I don't know.
It might be 2.
It might... Who knows what Roger Goodell's thinking? He let Tyreek Hill off the hook and then threw somebody a 6-game suspension from 2017. I don't know what the guy's thinking. Let's talk about the Jets, though. I'm with you. The Cowboys are going to win this game. Zeke is back. The defense is better. Amari Cooper is better than any receiver that the Cowboys have, even Evan Ingram. Than the Giants have, even Evan Ingram. On paper, you got to go Cowboys.
Right.
Let's talk about Week 10 on the Jets. Before they go on bye, another team that's going to be a little bit more difficult to run against. They just drafted that big D tackle out of Alabama this year, number 3 overall.
Quinnen
Williams, thank you. Big Q. They're going to be better at defending the run themselves. They brought in C.J. Mosley to help it out. And this is what I keep basing this back on is what is Saquon Barkley going... Is Saquon Barkley going to be able to establish himself? And then whoever's playing quarterback, can he build off of that for the Giants? I look at it, this is not the game Saquon establishes himself. This is the game Saquon gets shut down. This is the 1.9, and maybe he has like one big run, and they're like, oh, look out for the Giants. Yeah, or Saquon's a beast because he had like a 48-yard run, and then he had 19 other carries that went for like a yard and a half.
I mean, when he breaks that first 4, the linebacking core with C.J. Mosley, and then even in the secondary with Adams and May, this is a team that's built to stop the run. A team like the Giants who are going to try to run first as much as the NFL can be a run-first team. A team like the Jets is meant to stop it.
Now, Ian's still all in on the Lions. He says they're going to win by 14. He also says they're the NFC North champs. Again, I think they're a couple years out from that still, Ian. I like what they've done. I don't think they're there yet, but I think the Lions are building in the right direction. He also said Giants Stadium will be empty for this game, talking about the Jets.
Dude,
but this one's on the road. This one is actually same stadium. But, yeah, it's technically a home game for the Jets. So their season ticket holders get first dibs.
It's not going to be empty, man. It is going to be...
It's New York, right?
Dude,
it's the rivalry.
It might be even sold out, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying everyone's going to go, but this will be a stacked stadium, man. I'm telling you. Now, They take this stuff serious when it comes into that. Absolutely. When it comes into the two newer teams playing against each other.
Absolutely. Now, Week 11, they get a good bye. They get a bye towards the back half of the season.
Is this a playoff team?
Yeah, I know. How did they wind up with it? Apparently, it doesn't matter how good you are. They just randomly throw out bye. Yeah, right. But they did get the Week 11 bye. So Week 12, they come back and face Murderers Row with the Bears on the road, the Packers after that at home, and then you get the Eagles on the road. I know you got to play the Eagles twice, but man, these are 3 teams that want to make the playoffs. This is going to be rough. This is going to be rough, Drew.
I mean, is there even a game here that makes you go, we should talk about it because it might be close?
Eagles because it's in division. and maybe you can run a little bit.
After the slaughter of the Bears and the Packers?
Let me give you at least a little bit of like that maybe kind of scenario,
Okay.
right?
All right.
I'm talking out of pocket here. I don't really believe this is going to happen. But when you look at the Eagles, there's one thing that defense does really well, which is play on the defensive line. The Giants have built an offensive line to try to counter that, right? So maybe the offensive line wins in one of these games. They don't have the linebackers. They don't have the safeties that are really going to make that big of an impact against Saquon.
Though.
I know. Hear me out, Drew. Maybe Saquon can keep Carson Wentz, who might be injured at this point,
It's true.
on the sideline if he is healthy, and we're going to see the Giants run the ball a little bit more effectively than the Eagles are used to.
If that's the case, the Eagles aren't playing for the playoffs.
No, they need this one. No, I 100%.
Carson's hurt.
Totally agree. They need this one
Ian's
for sure.
saying loss, win. He's saying the Eagles are going to lose that game against the Giants.
That's the most likely. It's the most likely win.
So he's agreeing with you.
Because Aaron Rodgers, if he's healthy,
sense.
and I know every Packers fan is hoping to God he's healthy at this point, but if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, he can come out and he's going to be able to throw on these young cornerbacks. He just is, right? Even though he's got young receivers, they're going to find a little bit of space. These corners aren't going to be ready to match up with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. The Bears, that defense isn't just defensive line thick. I mean, you've got linebackers that are great. You've got secondary players that can come up and make an impact like Clinton Dix.
Right.
And their other safety, whose name I can't think of right now, not the guy they lost. Not Amos they lost. It's Ed
Yeah, I forgot.
something. Yeah, okay. They have another good safety as well.
No, they do. I'm agreeing with you that the Eagles could be a trip-up game, Ian, but I don't see it being in Philadelphia. I don't see that being the case. Guy, remember, they face them in Week 17. That might be the game where they sit some of their starters if they're in a spot of win.
It's the NFC, bro.
But more likely not. But I'm just telling you, in New York, that might be the trip-up game and not Week 14 in Philadelphia. I just don't see it.
Ian is saying maybe it's that trip-up game
That's what I was
because
talking
they overlook him.
I don't see it in Week 14 in Philly. I don't see in Philly.
Yeah.
If it was the opposite and they faced him in Week 14 in New York, okay.
And we did talk about it.
Okay.
We talked about it, but then we were like, the Eagles throw really well. The Eagles now want to run with Jordan Howard. They have a good offensive line themselves. We got to go Eagles. We just got to do it. That's 3 straight losses. I think the Packers beat them. I think the Bears beat them. I think the Eagles beat them. But the Dolphins don't.
Week 15 in New
It
York,
gets a little bit easier.
this is probably another bye week. And then the Dolphins are going to go off and win 7
Maybe.
games.
Yeah, I know. Just maybe this is Daniel Jones' first win of the season. Maybe we see Daniel Jones start this game. He goes up against Josh Rosen, who's not an experienced arm. Maybe these young cornerbacks show up in this game.
Even though I like what they're doing in Miami defensively, especially in their secondary, who has better weapons for this young quarterback to start the game?
The Giants.
The Giants do. This is for sure
Who
a
have
win
the better
for the
running
Giants.
back? The Giants. Who has the
Yeah.
better offensive line? The Giants.
Correct.
Who has the better secondary? I'd still say Dolphins at this point. But I don't think Xavier Howard's as good as everybody else does because he picks off, he had 3 good games where he had 3 interceptions in each of them. And then, the rest of the season, he stunk.
He's good. He just plays for a
he's
really...
good in spurts.
Look
and
at,
then bad in
look
spurts.
at his... We're not going to get
You know who
into
that
this.
is?
We can't get
Marcus
into this.
Peters.
We can't get into this.
No, we can't. Real quick. Marcus Peters, same way. Good in spurts, and you're like, hey, that's a lot of interceptions.
All right, look at his pass rush. What do we talk about all the time?
That is
a
true.
good pass rush creates a good secondary.
So
Guess
he's
what he doesn't have?
Somewhat better
A
than
good
Marcus
pass rush.
Peters. Okay.
I'm not saying he's the
It's-
best corner
it's-
because he's not.
Right.
But to sit there and say he's just an okay corner is ridiculous.
He's just an okay corner. Just don't
That's
let this be
ridiculous.
the game
That's
that he gets the
ridiculous.
3 interceptions. I mean, if Daniel Jones throws him 3 picks, then yeah, the Giants will lose this game. If this isn't the game he gets 2 to 3 interceptions, then who cares? I mean, he's not a shutdown guy. He's a guy who takes a lot of chances. He's a guy who gets burned a lot. I don't think I'm even with as good as the secondary is, as much as we like these guys in Miami. I'm not saying the Giants are just out of this game throwing the ball.
Ty's son says Giants eat people,
They do.
so they definitely eat Dolphins.
Yeah, they should, right? I look at the rest of this game just really quick before we get out of here. I think, before we move on at least, I think when you look at the Dolphins versus the Giants, it's a battle of who is going to get a higher pick. Also, whose quarterback is farther along in development. Josh Rosen did not have a great start out there in Arizona. You want to see him take that step forward, but I look at the weapons in Miami, and I say they can't. There's no one to be scared of if you're the Giants
Drake
defense.
Parker, is that better than Saquon and Ingram?
And Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard, no.
Well, I was just picking their best,
I'm
best
with
2
you.
players.
I'm with you. Absolutely not. It absolutely is not.
There's Cody.
And Cody says Eli can pick and choose how he can win this game, minus the long ball. Miami can't do the same. I don't know this Eli at this point. Like I said before, you don't take a quarterback 6 overall to not play him. I think likely by week 15, likely by week 6, we probably see Daniel Jones in the game. I mean, maybe after the Patriots, they wait till like Cardinals and Lions, so things are a little bit easier. But I think it's probably Daniel Jones here at this point, Cody.
Let's go ahead and move into week 16, where they go on the road. They face the Washington Redskins in D.C. Is there any different scenario from week 4 to week 16?
This might be two rookies playing each other. This might be Haskins versus Daniel Jones. This might be a rookie battle. It might be
talked about this being another win for the Giants, but
the Redskins might be hurt by now.
That's the reason why.
But if you lose an offensive lineman or two for the Giants, I think everything starts to crumble. They still are not a deep offensive line, even though I think they're a talented offensive line. I think if they lose a guy or two, this is still Redskins all the way. If they have one of those Alabama boys in the middle, and then they have Ryan Kerrigan on the outside who's going to be able to force Saquon Barkley to one side or the other, the Redskins are going to have enough to play enough defense where they're going to get the win here.
Absolutely. In week 17, at home, they face the Philadelphia Eagles. We both think that the Eagles will not be sitting their starters, even though we talked about it.
You're not going to be able to sit the starters with the Cowboys in this division.
So they got all their starters out there, all that defensive line out there. Can your team upset the Eagles before they go in the playoffs?
Do you have anything that it takes? I think get out of this game with Daniel Jones not taking significant injury. It's a win. That defensive line is going to be after him. I know I said the offensive line has a chance against him early on, and maybe they keep him clean in this game, but you can't bet on him keeping him clean 2 games in a row.
Worst case scenario,
still like the deepest defensive line in football.
Worst case scenario, your rookie quarterback gets hurt at week 17.
It tears an ACL or something where you're like, oh, now next year we're going to miss games because he got hurt in this game.
You got to keep Eli there.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you. Just get out of this one alive. Even just as bad, Saquon Barkley having a major injury in this game. Why pound the rock? Why try to challenge with Saquon Barkley? Why put the miles on those tires when this game means nothing for the Giants, who probably want a better pick anyway?
All right, guys, that has us for the Giants' 2019 season. We have them 3-13. This is one of those teams where we talked about being the worst, but possibly the best of the worst team. We really questioned if they're a 4-win team, but we just couldn't give it the way the schedule gets. What is your last thought about the New York Giants in 2019 season?
Let me do just a couple comments really quick. Ian says that the Arizona gave up way too quick on Rosen. They gave up on him, and they gave up on Steve Wilkes. 1 year for anyone in the NFL is way too short. This should be a 3-year developmental thing for anybody before you give up on somebody. I agree with you there. But when you have Kyler Murray and he fits the new offensive coach's style, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and say this is what it's got to be. Also, he says win for Philly to make up for the loss in Philly. I don't see Philly losing either one of these games because I think Philly's got to stay hungry if they're going to get their positioning in the playoffs.
What's up, Sean? Glad you could join us at the very end.
Absolutely.
What is your last thought about this New York Giants team in 2019?
We're going to see good offense. They're going to win more than the 3 games we just predicted. Obviously, we can only give them 3 on paper. They're going to win 5 or 6 games because we both agree they've improved, right? At least they've got that one side of the ball fixed.
Yeah.
But when you look at it on paper, right now, until the injuries start rolling in, I can't give any one of these games as a win. I just can't do it.
Yeah. As you put it, we both think this offense is not going to have a lot of problems putting up points. The question is the secondary. And, of course, we both...
And the front 7. And the line... Or, I'm sorry, and the defensive line.
I meant the defense. The question...
Everybody.
The question is on the defense. But we both think the secondary is what I meant to say, might be the most highlighted spot of this defense. If that secondary could somewhat find itself between, from week 10 and on, maybe see a couple more wins, but it's going to be a while before that secondary can make a difference. Unfortunately, they missed the playoffs, and they get an early top 5 pick in the 2020 draft.
Because they traded up, they had 3 first-round picks this year. This is a developmental year for the Giants. We want to see improvement out of these guys. Maybe not the studs. We want to see improvement from weeks 1 to week 17. We want to see Daniel Jones take strides. Just as importantly, oddly enough, we want to see the defensive guys in Dexter Lawrence and DeAndre Baker take those strides too, because these are the guys you're going to need to build this defense on around in the next 2 to 3 years. We need to see one of these guys develop into a star and the other guy be effective.
Absolutely.
Let me just rip a burp and then I'll finish up. All right, Drew, I'll give you a chance. Any final thoughts for the Giants?
Man, I'm good.
All right. we've got some special thanks. I'm going to let you take that.
Yeah. Guys, thank you again for all the likes, the comments, and the shares. It means the world to us. Thank you so much for being here. Real quick, and if I miss you, I'm so sorry, but real quick for anyone that commented, Wesley, Nate, Ian, Sharif, Ken, Brian, Ty, Will, Nestor, Bobby, Steven, Jeremy, Scott, Cody, and lastly, Sean. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It means the world to us that you guys spent your time with us.
And if you only watched, you didn't comment, that's okay too. If you want to get into the mix, we want to hear from you. Again, we do this because we like talking with you. We don't know everything. We know most things, but we don't know everything. We want to get your opinion and your take on everything as well. So for Sports Around the Bar, guys, we appreciate your views. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the shares. We appreciate the likes. We appreciate everything because it helps us keep going, and it helps us beat Facebook's algorithm. So for Sports Around the Bar, Drew, we will be back on Wednesday to talk about a team that I can't remember. I looked and I forgot who it was. We'll be back to talk about somebody else in the NFL and everything else going on in sports.
Absolutely.
So until then, I am Jake, this is Drew, and we will see you guys next time.
See ya.